Okay, it's the end of the session. This is Gertie's roadmap to success. This is a virtual session, so you're not going to see Gertie in this video, but we're going to kind of summarize all the things we talked about in the session. So basically, Gertie is a 10-month-old Dachshund who was adopted a couple weeks ago and is fearful of people, insecure outside on walks, probably wasn't socialized very well as a puppy. Also had some potty accidents in the house. I shared a video that should have already addressed that, but I'm going to kind of summarize the things we went over in this virtual session. So let me see. The video above in this write-up, it covers some tips that you can use to help Gertie feel more comfortable on walks. Now remember, the thing I talked about in the video is when we have a dog that has a difficulty with something, what we're looking to do is kind of build their confidence. And the way we do that is by exposing them to whatever the stimulus is in the easiest version of the situation possible and setting the dog up for success. So in Gertie's case, that would mean exercising Gertie before we actually do whatever this is. In this case, going for walks. And then, as you see, I talked about going to a walk in a big open field, in a park somewhere. Gertie doesn't like the hustle bustle of the city. So we go to the easiest version of the walk, which is a lot of green space in the middle of a park, so you don't have to worry about anybody coming and approaching. Gertie had a bad experience where the dog off leash ran up and kind of tackled her and created a negative association. So if you're in this big open park, you can see there's nobody around. So we get her used to being in the park and walking on a leash in a park, and then gradually we start exposing her to the various stimulus that is that makes it a little bit more lifelike of walking around in Silver Lake. And so eventually you get to the point where she's walking on sidewalks through the park, and then sidewalks through the park where people are around, and then eventually sidewalks at the edge of the park, and then from the park into the neighborhood. And gradually we build up the dog's confidence and its skill set. And then once it's nice and confident and relaxed and comfortable in that situation, that's when we take it to the slightly next level of difficulty and keep on raising it up. So you can do the same sort of thing with a lot of different things the dog is uncomfortable about. Now there are some sounds and things that the dog is uncomfortable with, and so I'm going to go over a quick, one of the things I talked about is what's called a counter conditioning exercise. I don't think I used the label when I was talking to you. So let's say that she doesn't like the sound of the blender going on. Well, what I would do is I would have the blender in the other room, like my kitchen is over there. So let's say I have somebody in the kitchen, I'm talking to them in an airwick, or they can hear me. And so what I would do is, Maxwell, come here, Max. So I would have my dog here. Let's see if I can get Maxwell to come up into the shot. There we go. So I would take a treat, and I got a treat here. I actually got you guys can stay over there. Hey, Venice, Maxwell, come here. Maxwell, no, I want you up here so people can see in the shot. All right, so I'd say, I would maybe come up with a code. So maybe every time I say a number out loud, the person that would turn the blender on for a second. Come on, Max, come up here. So I'd say when I was 13, well, first thing I would do is I would give Max a treat and say 13. Zzz! So he's got a treat in his mouth and then he hears the zzz. So he's in a pretty good mood. Max, come here. 22. Zzz! So I do this, and this is, a lot of people tell me I do this wrong. I do this intentionally because I don't want the dog to run away from the blender. So now he's heard the blender sound, but before the blender sound starts, he's got this treat in his mouth. So I would do this for maybe 5 to 10 treats. If the dog's nervous, I would move the blender further away or move myself further away from the blender, or do something to muffle the sound or turn down the volume or lower the intensity. I do that by usually turning down the volume, increasing the distance, or slowing down the speed. So in this case, I would increase the distance. So eventually I get to the point where I've done it 5 or 6 times and Max is not stopping or reacting negatively to that sound. Max, come here. Then what I would do is I would say, okay, 12, zzz, blender. So now I make the switch. Now the stimulus happens, the sound of the buzzer or the blender. After it goes off, then I give Max the treat and I said the word blender. You don't have to necessarily say the word. So now the sound of the blender is an indicator I'm about to get a treat. So now instead of fearing the sound of the blender, I like the sound of the blender. So you can do this with all sorts of different things. You can do it with skateboards, fire alarms, people of different stripes. So the first way I do it is about 3 to 5 or 10 times. I'm giving the dog the treat first, and then they're exposed to the sight, the sound, the smell, or whatever it is. At enough of a distance to lower enough intensity where the dog is not fearful or reactive. When the dog's pretty chill about it, that's when I would switch. So if it's maybe the dog doesn't like people who are wearing a hat. So I would give the dog a treat and then have the person who's obscured behind the wall pop out for 1 second while the dog's chewing it and then disappear again. Do that for 5 treats in a row. Then what I would do is have the person appear, and the dog looks at the person, and as soon as they disappear, give the treat, and I would say maybe compañero, or whatever, a word that means friend or a buddy or something like that. So we're labeling it. You don't have to do the labeling, like I said. I like to do it because it makes it easier to communicate things and assign factors later on. But after a while, the dog's like, I like men in hats because men in hats means I get a treat. Blender means I get a treat. Kid on a bicycle, skateboard, and so on and so forth. But if you are doing the skateboard, make sure that's the only thing. And I don't have a skateboard and somebody has a drone going by and somebody's doing the leaf blower on their lawn and there's some construction going over there and there's horns honking on the street over here. That's too many things going on. Remember, we want to boil it down to the easiest version. Ideally, one stimulus at a time. Okay, we also, to get back on track of what we kind of talked about, let me kind of read through my notes here while I go through that. All right. Let me see. Well, I'll talk about the other stuff that we went over, and then I'll go through my customized notes. So we went over the importance of exercise. Now, you have stairs. As long as the vet is okay with your dog going up and down the stairs, you can do that doggy stairmaster. Go to the top of the stairs, show the dog you have a treat. When the dog's looking at you, throw the treat to the bottom of the stairs. When Gertie goes to the bottom of the steps and licks it up, licks it up, come up with a word that means go down south. Call it Wales. And then have her, I don't know geography, so maybe Wales is in northern England, I'm sorry. And then you have her call the dog up to the top of the stairs and then give it another treat and call it like Canada. So Canada means goes up, Wales means to go down. And again, use those fun command words because the more that you guys are smiling and laughing, the more relaxed your dog's going to be. Especially if other people come in your house and then you say Wales and the dog runs up the stairs or down the stairs, whatever the case may be. People kind of chuckle. That motivates the dog. All right, so that's a doggy stairmaster. Remember, exercise with an empty stomach. So the first thing I do is I throw it down and then licks it up and then here's the word and comes back up and I keep on and I count each down up as one and I keep doing this until the dog's like, you're crazy. I've been down there 29 times. I'm not going down those stairs anymore. Always start at the top. I found somebody tried to do it up, throw the treats up the stairs. It didn't work as well. Now we know the dog's maximum number, 29. So maybe before a walk, maybe we would do 10 up downs on the stairs. Before visitors come over, maybe we do 15. Maybe before we go to work, we do 25 or whatever it is. So you want to play around with the elements until we find out the right quantity, the right amount of exercise the dog needs to set it up for success or for the next stage. So your average dog needs, dog's Gertie's size, probably going to sleep about 12 to 14 hours a day. When she's asleep, she's recharging her batteries, and then she needs to burn that energy off. So exercise is best done every 2 to 4 hours, or before something's going to happen, before you're going to practice and set your dog up for success. Okay, so other things you can do, scent games. Google scent games. It's just hiding treats around. Every time your dog licks it up, you say hunt or find. After a while, the dog's like, yeah, hunt. I want to use my nose to find stuff. Especially because of the breed of dog that you have. Dogs with big ears, herding, or dogs not herding, but scent dogs really burn a lot of energy by using their nose. I'd also like you to use a snuffle mat, and you have the snuffle mat, just make sure you pick it up after food so there's no peeing on the snuffle mat, and get an Omega Paw treat ball. I'm going to probably have them linked up above. Videos of showing you how to do those. So remember, if the dog's using its nose to find its food, it's confidence building, it burns energy, it's relaxing for them. So it accomplishes and slows down the feeding process. So it accomplishes multiple things. Okay, what else do we want to do? I got some sketchy guy going across the street, so let me see what's going on there. Oh, my neighbor's home, so she can deal with it. All right. So let me see. Other things we want to go over. Low power mode, cancel. Running out of power, so I'm going to have to go quick. All right. So other things you can do for exercise. On walks, letting her sniff. Now, the video above is going to talk about a lot of that. So make sure you talk about that stuff. Hey! Let me see. Other things you can do is... well, I guess that's it for her. Make sure when you are letting her on walks, make sure you let her sniff. Dogs burn more energy on walks sniffing than they do from actual locomotion of moving. So sniffing is really crucially important, and I have some tips in the video above about that. All right, we also talked about the importance of rules. Remember, enforcing rules, not mean. Rules are not negative. Enforcing rules, not mean. And breaking the rule is a horrible way to reward your dog. So don't reward your dog by breaking the rule. Rules should be in place for a minimum of 66 days. Minimum of 3 months, I usually tell people, or as long as the problem's still going on. Now, Gertie has some issues that show that she could be on the road to developing separation anxiety. And so one of the first rules will help not allowing on the furniture. Now, you can always go to her level and cuddle with her. She just can't come up to your level. So get those X mats like this. They look like this. Sometimes they're more cut out. And put those on all the pieces of furniture. Take away the steps of the papasan and use the dog beds. Remember, for the dog beds, get a light color, light cream, white, or light gray, no pattern, preferably one that's flat. So throw a treat on the dog bed when she licks it up. Come up with a funny name for each individual dog bed. So throw about 10 or 15 treats in a row. Every time she licks up, say the command word. Then when she's not looking, throw a treat there and let it sit there. And with a nice contrasty color, that she should see it right away. When she sees it, let her go get it. Don't point it out. When she gets it and licks it up, say the word for the command word for the bed. Third way is to put her in a sit or lie down on the dog bed and give her the treat. So these are 3 ways to entice her to go there. But then when you're watching TV and she goes over there and I'm going to pull out a treat and launch it in the air, and so it drops. So now she's like, every time I come here, there's a treat here. I'd also get a bully stick, drill a hole through the back of the bully stick, and zip tie it to like a dumbbell and put the dumbbell on her dog bed. The only way I can chew on this thing is by being on the dog bed. And I hear the command word every time I go there. So have a dog bed in every room that you hang out in. No furniture for whatever that period of time is. That will help the dog practice not being on top of you and touching you at all times, which will help. You'll have to do some cuddling on the floor, which is fine. But the dog needs to practice both of them. Now, I sent you the link to the setting up the exercise pen. Make sure you follow those steps. If you just put her in there and you're outside of it, she's probably going to protest and whine or whimper. If you follow the steps, it spends time with you in there. Good lures and good things enrichment-wise in there will make her want to hang out in there. That way, otherwise, it's looked at as kind of a negative. All right, so we also other rules we talked about, not being allowed in the kitchen when we're preparing food, not around the table when we're eating food, and you have to sit at the door. Go to the door once, say sit. If the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, walk away and sit down in the immediate area. And I do this for your baby gates as well. Sit down nearby, and then if she protests, don't say anything to her. Ignore. Remember, good attention, bad attention from you, the same thing. And any attention from you is validating. So wait 1 minute. After 1 minute, go back to the door and command her to sit 1 time. She has 3 seconds to sit. If she doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. Keep doubling the length of time until eventually, when you go to the door, she sits down. As soon as that butt hits the ground, the door opens. This will train her to go sit at the door to ask to go out, as opposed to scratching or barking or whimpering or whining at the door. Now remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're rewarding. So if she's whimpering, stop petting her. If she's excited and you pet her, you're rewarding her for being excited. If she jumps up on you, you pet her, you're rewarding her for jumping up on you. So be cognizant of those things. Let me see. Other rules, structured feeding. I'm probably going to link it up above, but what you can do is put the food down, and I do this with a bowl first. If this is the bowl, I put it down and put my hand on top of it, and I wait for her to back off. So she's going to try to take it like Quest is right there. As soon as she backs off, then I would, well, I can't really do it here, but I would raise my hand as soon as the dog's backed off. The dog goes back forward, I collapse on top of it. So eventually the dog learns, and I wait, and the dog its head backs away, and then I raise my hand up, its head comes towards it, I collapse on top of it. And you'll do this several times until eventually you do retreat. You'll be able to go like this, and the dog, you'll be able to go like that, and the dog, just like Quest is right there, isn't going for it. And you wait 1 second, then give her permission to eat. And then eventually 2 seconds, 4 seconds. You get to the point where she has to wait for permission to eat food that's waiting there, but there's nothing but air blocking her and you. So now the self-restraint, self-control is the reason why she's not doing it. Self-restraint, self-control are great ways to help dogs with behavior problems develop. That control will just really help in a lot of different avenues. Some we didn't talk about in the session, but the more tricks and commands the dog knows, the better prepared they are. So I would recommend you get a clicker like we talked about. Remember, you load or prime the clicker. There should be a link to that above. But every time she sits down, and then pet her or give her that treat. So remember, the click means you did what I wanted. I'm going to get a treat or a reward to you as fast as possible. So here's Callie. Callie, sit, sit. So the butt hit the ground. That's when I clicked. Then I immediately started petting her, and then I said the command word. If I give her a treat, I would, as soon as the butt hits the ground, I would click, give her the treat, and say sit, and then after the treat goes in her mouth. So we want to provide the reward first, and then she hears the command word after. So get one of these clickers, because this really makes a big difference. And then go to YouTube, look for easy tricks to train your dog. Teach her to roll over, play dead, lay on her side. fetch, take things, dance. Well, maybe not dance for a Dachshund, but the more tricks and skills that she has, the more confident she'll be, and the more confident she'll be, the more prepared she is to deal with life out and about, and the less she's going to be skittish about different things. We also talked about petting with a purpose passive training. Before I get to those, though, I want to remind you about what we talked about going out to public places, because she's a little bit fearful of people she doesn't know. So remember, if she turns her head, people reach to pet her, and she turns her head, lowers her head, or backs up, that's her way of saying, I don't want that person to pet me. And we just think, well, it's a positive thing. Most people don't know that means no. So what I'd like you to do is have a whole bunch of treats, go to places, and carry her. And as soon as, if somebody comes up, can I pet your dog? Actually, she's a rescue dog. She's really fearful of people. Would you mind giving her a treat? We'll see if she'd take a treat from you. Oh, sure. So you've kind of told them, you can't pet my dog, but you can give a treat and you can help. And most people want to help dogs. So then what I want you to do is give your dog the treat first. So, and if it's a treat, trainers probably tear it in half. Make sure it's a fresh one. So if she takes it, then give the other half to the person. The person ideally would have them in a flat hand. Now, if she turns her head to the side or backs up, that's her way of saying, I don't want to do it. It's too much for her. So if that's the case, then I would arrange to have friends and family members come to your house for feeding time. Neighbors will work as well. Get some warm shredded chicken from Chipotle or make some yourself. The temperature is more important than the taste for food. Make sure it's warm and it's something special. And then basically put a bunch of shredded pieces, a little piece of chicken, and then she has to eat them out of their hand. Again, with a flat hand and sideways too. And that would be nice if they're sitting on the floor. And so after a while, she gets to know the people that you know, maybe your friends, your neighbors. She gets to meet them a couple times. She might not eat the first time or the second time, but after a while, she starts eating out of their hands. She gets more comfortable interacting with people and good things happening. Then eventually you can go back to the point where you're carrying her, and maybe you have to have a warm Chipotle chicken for that as well. And then people come up and they get a treat from you, and then better treat from the people. So you give the chicken liver treat, and the people give Chipotle. Well, now she starts seeing people approaching as a good thing. But all they're doing is at first just giving her the treat. Now, after she gets to the point where she's kind of like perking up when she sees people, and she's not turning her head away, and she seems engaged and not stiff. Well, can I pet your dog? Actually, she's a fearful dog, but you can help us. We're trying to get people to give her treats. If she takes a treat, maybe you could try to pet her. Sure. So now we're going to the second stage, next stage, making it a little bit more difficult, like we talked about earlier. So now they give her the treat first, and she's chewing the treat. And when they give her the treat, then if her head is here, just hold your hand out an inch in front of her nose. If she turns her head to the side or backs up or lowers her head, that's her way of saying no. And so you can tell the person, if you hold your hand out here in front of her nose, as long as she doesn't turn her head to the side or back away or lower her head, or if she engages with you, so she comes towards you, then you can try tickling her under her chin. But if you reach for her and she turns away or backs up, please stop. So that was a harder way for me to say it. You'll come up with a more concise way of saying it. But if you come up with a routine like that, she'll start to recognize, if I don't want people to pet me, I turn my head to the side and they listen to me. But if people approach, they're giving me good treats. And if somebody's giving me $100 bills, then they want to pat me on the back, I'm probably going to be okay with them patting me on the back after I've gotten about $1,000 worth of $100 bills. It'll take a little bit of time of practice. But that's the idea. Eventually it gets to the point where the person comes up, first they get a treat, and then pet. And just like the counter conditioning I talked about a while ago, when you get to the point where everybody can give her a treat and pet her, and she's not turning her head away at all, then what I would have you do is have them come over and pet her, then give her a treat, and then they walk away. So the treat becomes the last thing. So the pet is an indicator I'm about to get a treat. So I like it. Come. That's passive training. We'll talk about passive training first. Sit. Passive training is waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior they want. Most of us train our dogs, if you remember, like we talked about, to misbehave. They bark, we tell them no. They jump up, we say get down. They start chewing their furniture, we say stop. But as soon as they come to us, we ignore that. They lay down at our feet, we take that for granted. They drop balls at our feet, we take that for granted. All the things that we don't like get our attention as fast as possible. Remember, good attention, bad attention for dogs, same thing. So dog's going to do whatever gets your attention the fastest. So passive training is celebrating the things your dog does that you like. So next time your dog comes to you, pet it and say come when you didn't ask it to. When it sits down, pet her and say sit. When she lays down, pet her and say crash. I say crash, so my clients say chill. Come up with a funny word. So again, we're not asking her, we're just rewarding her when she does these things on her own. When she takes her first bite of food, call it bangers or mash or whatever the name of your favorite restaurant or favorite dish is. When she drinks water, call it Merlot. Every time she goes to her dog bed, just say the word Jamaica. Even though you didn't throw the treat, but it's not as impactful as if you give her a treat or you pet her, but it's still impactful. You're labeling and connecting those two things together. So also be careful about doing it in the wrong situations. A lot of people inadvertently give their dog a command word to get fearful. somebody goes to pet her and you're like, it's okay, good girl. Well, every time I hear it's okay, girl is when a creepy person's touching me. So after a while, it's okay, good girl is something I don't like. So be mindful of that. It's okay. If I'm fearful of something, it's okay, and then something bad happens, or I perceive something bad happens, and I keep on saying it's okay, and then bad stuff happens, I'm like, I'm not listening to you. Every time you say it's okay, it's not okay. And actually, matter of fact, you say, oh, it's okay, I'm looking to see what's coming next. So be careful about that. Now remember, if your dog is fearful, you can lay your hand on them. They do associate touch with affection, but as soon as you start petting, you will amplify anything they are doing at the time. A couple other things. Not saying no is almost the same thing as saying yes. So make sure you disagree right away. Remember, dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 3 seconds to correct or reward a dog. Make sure you correct or reward them within that 3-second window, especially for passive training, which is celebrate. Remember to use the word celebrate. If I'm standing here and the dog walked up and I missed it, somebody says celebrate, I look at the dog and I just say whatever they're doing. I can't ask the person, I don't have enough time. So the dog's standing there, I assume it came and petted for a come. If it's sitting, pretty obvious, laying down, crash. So come up with all these command words, and if your dog does like a toy or something like that, name all your individual toys too. I would also get an antler, a nylabone. They're coming flavored nylabones. Get some bully sticks. I like getting the odor-free ones because for obvious reasons. My dog's favorites are cow kneecaps. They're one of my dog's favorites. You can get those on Amazon. Those are good for several chews. But getting her some appropriate chew items would be helpful. It'd be nice if your guests that came over are the ones that give her those, because now, again, the guest comes over and I get this great chewing and I get it from the guest. And if she won't take it from the guest, then she doesn't get it. And after a while, she will, but the feeding will help with that as well. All right, what else do we go over? We also went over petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is what it sounds like. It's petting your dog for a reason. Remember, anything your dog is doing when you pet is what you're reinforcing. So if your dog's barking, you're like, it's okay, good girl, calm down. You're petting your dog for barking as far as your dog's concerned. So next time your dog nudges you or paws at you or scratches for attention, tell Gertie to sit. If she sits within that 3 seconds, reach over, pet her under her chin. Remember, never pet her on top of her head. And then say the word sit and pet her as much or as little as you want. If she doesn't sit within 3 seconds, watch a little bit more TV. Check out things on your phone. Show her I have other things to do. I asked you to do the smallest thing I asked you can do as a dog. And if you can't be bothered to sit, I can't be bothered to pet you. Leaders tell, followers ask. After a while, she'll figure this out and she'll start coming and sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. When she does, you bet your butt you better pet her. Otherwise, she'll go back to nudging and scratching at you. And after a while, she's going to realize I have to pay for the privilege of their attention, and better than, I'm going to prepay for it, and she's going to come and sit in front of you to prepay for that attention. When she does, again, do reward her for that. Now, remember to use the watchword paycheck. Paycheck means I suspect you forgot to pet with a purpose. So if somebody comes in, I'm petting one of my dogs, and they say paycheck, even if I did it right, I would stop petting, say sit. When the dog sits, I'd pet her on the chin, say sit, and I'd say, actually, I asked the dog to sit. When you slammed the door, she stood up, and I continued petting her. Good. So, and that's another thing. So paycheck is not gotcha. It just means I suspect you forgot. So even if you did it right, make sure you do that. Make sure you stop, and it gives you another opportunity to practice again. And even if you want to pet the dog, it's not demanding attention, you should still tell it to sit. So it has to earn that attention from you. Let me see. When I say a command word, I say it twice if the dog knows it. I say sit to tell the dog what to do. If the dog complies, I pet it under his chin, and then I say sit a second time to tell the dog why I'm doing it. Dogs hear the first word that you say. Sit, good girl. Well, good girl does not mean sit. It's out of context. So when she sit. Remember to say it consistently as well. They hear inflection. All right, let me think what else. We also went over the passive training. I don't know where I put my glasses. There we go. Or not passive training. We also went over the escalating consequences to disagree. You'll use those to establish invisible boundaries, which is one of the links that I have posted on your write-up. All right. For the play area that we talked about upstairs, that play pen, I would make sure that you follow the steps in the link, like I said, that I texted you earlier. Otherwise, she won't like it. You're gonna have to have her practice being in that play pen area quite a bit before you start putting her in there where you're outside, and then you're nearby, and then gradually further and further away. Also, don't be afraid to put her in that room and tether her. It looked like there was a piece of wood kind of next to your TV that you might, I don't know if you can attach the leash to there. So if you attach that and then tether her, she can't reach the carpet. Just make sure there's a dog bed there. So that'd be a nice way to get her kind of jump started on that. Now, careful that she's not chewing the leash. She chews the leash, just get a chain leash. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much most of what we covered in the session. Now, if you have questions, please text me. If I don't hear from you, I will assume that everything's going great. So if there are questions or problems or things are not working well, please let me know. We can make little adjustments. I've got thousands of videos from all this other sessions I've worked with. I'm happy to share with you. If we need to, we can set up a follow-up session if necessary when we come back. I don't think we're going to need to, but phone calls and texts are probably something we'll do. That's very common, so please don't hesitate. The only time I get mad at my clients is when they have a question and don't message me because they wanted to wait. Don't wait. Just text it to me. And texting is the best way to reach me. All right. Well, this is Gertie's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.